the H.A.T.A.E podcast.
Hello and welcome back to the H.A.T.A.E podcast with me, Benjamin Madel, and today I'm joined by a special guest from London. It's Antony from Rawlings and Rawlings in London. How are you, Antony?
Very good, thanks, mate. Very, very good.
Good, good. As people who listened to the podcast before will know, we don't muck around with all the small talk and we get straight into it. So how did you get into hairdressing, Antony?
I sort of fell into it in a way. I grew up around that time that David Beckham had all his haircuts going on. Me and my best mate used to go to this barber guy who was very cool, and I quite like that. Then in secondary school, I got a little wild kit, that I was mucking around with, doing my hair, doing friends' hair. And then I went to university. I got a scholarship to an arts university called Central St Martin's in London. And I went there for about a year and a bit, and I hated it. I ended up kicking myself out, more or less. And my mum said, you can't sit around doing nothing. We're going to get you a job. At the time, I quite liked the idea of working for an estate agent in London called Foxtons. They were all driving around in these cool minis, and I thought that'd be a good gig. But I realised that I was a bit too creative for that. And my mum was going to the hair salon that day. I went with her. I met her hairdresser, and the rest is sort of history. I loved it in there.
Yeah. What was it did you sort of get pushed towards the university route at school, or was it something that you thought you wanted to do and then it didn't work out what you wanted?
Yeah, I mean, I never knew what I wanted to do. And I think that's been the story of my career and life, really, is that I've sort of had decisions made for me. So, I was reasonably academic in school, but I was an all-rounder. There was never any one thing that particularly sparked my interest. My dad's a chef. My mum used to be in that industry as well. So that I quite like that idea, but I was always good at art. And at the time, well, I'll tell you what made my mind up is the mayor of London at the time was a guy called Ken Livingstone, and he was handing out scholarships to potentially underprivileged kids, and I fell in that bracket. So I ended up getting my first year at St Martin's paid for by him.
Okay.
But I sort of knew as soon as I got there it wasn't the place for me. No one was the same as me. I liked art. I was good at art, but I didn't live and breathe it. I wasn't going to galleries every weekend. I didn't walk around with a sketchbook, and I certainly didn't see a career in it from a money point of view, if nothing else.
Yeah, it's one of those things, especially sort of with art degrees and things and that, is sometimes, especially if you are from more of a working class background, it can be one of those, you look at that and you think, well, how do you sort of get on, and it's
Totally.
very, very, very difficult. So then once you went to the salon with your mum there, what did you do? Did you train at that salon or did you go to another place or?
Yeah, no. So that was in Crouch End in North London, and it was a 10-15 minute walk away from my granddad's house. I knew that area very well, so it seemed like a natural place to work. The guy, it was a husband and wife who owned it, and I was a little bit older because I'd been university, so they took a punt on me. But I loved it. I suppose I was a little bit more, I knew I wanted to earn money. I was a little bit older than all the other apprentices. Most of them were 15, 16-year-old girls leaving school, didn't really know what they wanted to do. And I was desperate to earn some money, move out, show them that I could do what, I wanted to do. And within 6 months, I was really cutting hair on the floor unofficially. I was a proper geek back then. We didn't have what these guys have got nowadays of TikToks or YouTube or anything like that. I don't know if you remember, Ben, back then there was a website that was just starting to take off called myhairdressers.com.
Yeah. I use that as well. A
Yeah.
lot, because I'm about the same sort of age as you. I might be a little bit old, but I'm about the same sort of age. And it is that there wasn't the resources,
Not at all.
that there is now.
No. So I signed up to that. I was watching every video on that. Guys like Lee Stafford, Stacey Broughton, that I felt, were similar to me. And it's where I wanted to be. So there was that. There was courses. Back then, those big product manufacturers, their courses were worth going on.
Yeah.
Because there wasn't anything else, watching Sassoon's ABC videos, they'd just come out on DVD, so just continually watching that. So yeah, within 6 months I was on the floor, and within a year I'd qualified, and I was happy.
Was that the whole qualification through the salon as well? Not a day release program. It was
No,
all in salon.
so it was MVQ program through the salon.
Yeah.
So I was there 5 days a week, immersed in it, watching, passing up, just sitting at the if I wasn't washing hair, I was standing there watching people cut hair, just that old school way of doing it. And yeah, I just knew that I had to qualify it as soon as possible. So, getting models as well back then, I always remember this line, like my boss saying to me, if I can't get you to get them to come in for free, I'm not going to be able to get you to get them coming in paying. So I was like, yeah, okay, I've got to walk up and down Crouch End, like handing out leaflets, going into the shops, stuff that kids nowadays wouldn't dare do. There isn't, or, they'd stick an advert out in the Facebook group and they'd get 100 responses back. For us, it was, right, you're plodding the streets. Hi, I'm a trainee hairdresser. I'd love to cut your hair for free. Yeah, the old school way. Standing outside Topshop on Oxford Street,
Yeah. Going around into the local businesses, just letting people know who you are,
Yeah.
as we are a hairdresser, we are here.
Yeah.
Did you think though, if you would have gone into hairdressing as sort of a school leaver, do you think you would have taken it quite the way you did, as you did, obviously being a little bit older? Do you think it was a bit more of an advantage coming into it when you were a bit older?
Yeah, probably. There was, in those couple of years I was at uni, and obviously my mates were at uni, and I've got a mate who's he's quite a well-known DJ now, and those times there, I wasn't really focused on work or where I was going. I was focused on where we were going at the weekend.
Yeah.
And I can imagine that I wasn't potentially the most professional person come a Saturday morning. So yeah, I probably needed to have that time away and come into it with a slightly more mature head on my shoulders, rather than being a teenager, a kid,
Yeah.
But also, I suppose back then, there was a clear vision that, I'd leave school, I'd get a job, I'd get a flat, I'd then get a house, I'd then get married, I'd then have kids, and all that stuff sort of seemed to be really achievable. Whereas I think now, training young people, I don't know whether, certainly in London or in England, I don't know if that is a visible, clear, obtainable career path anymore, or life path.
Yeah.
I could quite easily rent a flat for, way less than £1,000 a month back then, and on an apprenticeship wage with a couple of you, that was doable. Like, that's just not the case anymore for London kids. So it's sad, but true.
Yeah. No, it is. It's a problem. It's creeping worldwide, especially if you're in a big city or around a big city. It's a nightmare. It's the same. My wife and I, we just moved from Chicago to Cincinnati for that reason. Is what we could get in Chicago for what we got down here. It's worlds apart. Worlds apart. It's a very difficult thing, and I think as an industry we're going to struggle. Unless we change our ways very, very quickly. Sort of just being able to retain staff that want to do the job. I think we're going to have to look around at how we're going to continue to do that, because people just aren't going to be able to afford to live and maybe achieve their life paths. What they want to do. It's
not at all.
It's going to be an uphill task, that's for sure.
And that was part of the reason why me and my wife opened the salon. We've got 4 girls between us, daughters, and they're all showing promise in different ways. The 4-year-old's not really, obviously, but we wanted to potentially safeguard against that thing of them not knowing what they're going to do with their life and not having any options. And we want to be able to give them that opportunity that, this place hopefully is going to be here for a very long time. And if any of you decide you want to be hairdressers, then we can give you that leg up. Because I do think it's going to be hard. I think mentalities are different as well. We understand we're in one of the most expensive cities in the world. And I think back in the day, when I listened to a lot of hairdressers older than myself, you know, they were prepared to live 7 to a room in a bedsit in Tooting or New Cross to be able to work in the salons in central London, and then work their way up to the point where those hairdressers were earning a lot of money. You know, we are at the more affluent end of the scale, but I still can't see how young people are going to be able to afford to live in London.
Yeah, no, it's certainly it's going to be a very interesting couple of years, especially with sort of expansions and whatnot. They're doing the Elizabeth line in London, going out to Reading, isn't it? I
Yeah,
do believe,
yeah, yeah,
it's a fair old chunk out of London, and it's still expensive in Reading. But we'll get
yeah,
back to it. So how long were you? Did you stay at the salon where you trained for a long time, or did you
yeah.
leave there quite quickly afterwards? So how did you progress from when you qualified?
So I was there for around about 5, 6 years. So in that time, we opened another salon in Muswell Hill, just a bit up the road from Crouch End, if anyone knows that part of London. And at the time, I thought, right, this is what I want to do. I want to manage a salon. And actually, I quickly realized, even in that short distance there, that a lot of clients were very loyal to Crouch End. They didn't necessarily want to travel up to Muswell Hill, which is all of about 10 minutes maximum. And the vibe was very different in Muswell Hill to Crouch End. And I ended up staying in the Crouch End salon and letting the management sort of develop the Muswell Hill salon, by which point I was sort of part of our art team. I was trying to get involved at Redkin, and I ended up just having this feeling of, you know what, if I was going to kick on and progress, I needed to move on from that salon. I mean, that salon is still there, and it's still a very, very good salon. But for me at that time, I just needed to move on. So I joined a different salon group called the Chapel. So I joined those guys, and I was then there as a stylist for another 5, 6 years. And again, we were heavily involved with Redkin at the time as a product line. So we were doing shows for them, and that was another great place and a totally different way of working in the hair industry. I don't know if you're aware, Ben, how those guys work.
Who's that? The Chapel? Or
Yes.
yeah, no. I'm aware they've got a couple of salons, haven't they, scattered around the place? But yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
how does it work now?
they work on a time system.
Okay.
So rather than booking out services, so like gone were the thought process of half head, toner, and a cut, you're booked out on time with no clients in between, which is actually now looking back on it, which was almost 15 odd years ago, is now how a lot of people are working anyway, because our color work has become so much more complicated than it was 15 years ago, that
Yeah.
stylists aren't booking, or colorists aren't booking clients in between. So I might have a fully booked Saturday with 2 clients in, and make the same money that I would have slamming people back to back in the old fashioned way. And
Yeah.
it was a lovely way of working for a period. It just took some readjustment. And the issue, and there's slight sort of squeeze points when you progress and when you get promoted, because of how the time was booked and the price given to that time, you'd actually make huge jumps at every promotion. So you would lose a ton of clients at every time you progress, and then would have to build up again. And actually, it ended up for me not working so well. Some people were perfectly happy to stay on a certain price point. I wanted to work my way up the ranks to get to the highest price point, and it just, for me, it didn't work.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept that, like you say, especially with how color services and such like are now. It's long gone to the day of foils and a little bit of a bit of a toner in the
Yeah,
basin and off we go.
yeah,
It's that what used to be three and a bit hour appointment is now 4 5 hour appointment, and that's
yeah,
an interesting thing. I should imagine as well, like you say, with the big price increases, it may cause an issue, but when you're doing your sort of annual price increase, I can imagine that being quite helpful.
yes,
If you're booking out, right, you're paying for an hour of my time. We've got to put the price up another £5 an hour, $5, whatever it might be. Makes it a lot easier to adjust on that thing, rather than sort of people looking at the cut and blow dry's 50 quid for whatever, for want of a better thing, and then it's now it's 55. Oh well, that's gone up
yeah,
ten
yeah,
percent. It's like it's an interesting way of doing things. And I think it's certainly with color services, I can see that being really advantageous,
It's great, but you need what you need is the service to go alongside that, in the sense of like every salon that Chapel has is beautiful.
yeah,
The level of customer service is amazing. The added extras, the everything about it feels opulent and it feels like you're being treated. If you are, a chop shop in the middle of nowhere and you are trying to create that same feeling, I don't know whether a client is going to pay for that. Might be a 45-minute development time and a
yeah,
shampoo. They're not going to pay for an hour's worth of dead time
yeah.
if the surroundings don't sort of marry up with that.
No, 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 quite right. That's something I didn't think about actually. Is obviously you get the clients. Certainly with the psychological aspect of it, because traditionally people are there saying, "Well, I have a cut and blow dry, I have full head of highlights, whatever the story might be." Sort of then converting that way of thinking into that time frame, and I suppose where you can price yourself in with the highlights and the cut and blow dry to leave that dead time in the middle. It's quite difficult when you're saying, "Well, we charge by the hour." Well, hang on, I sat here for an hour doing nothing.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I can imagine that could cause a problem with certain types of people. Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
very interesting way to do it. Something I think will probably become more common over the next
definitely.
few years. I know certainly a lot of people charge by the hour for their color correction work. Now,
Yes.
rather than having a set price. It's we charge 60, 70, whatever it is an hour. And we go from there. So then at the chapel, were you there for a long time? And then where did you progress after there?
Well, then I took a little bit of a right turn, um, because a product brand called Unite came on the market.
Yeah,
And the guys I had known for a very long time, they were the first guys I was buying my GHDs off. They were the first guys I was buying my YS Park hair equipment off. And I knew the team quite well. And they sort of delivered this product to the chapel. And we got a chance to play around with them. And I thought, this stuff, there's something different about this brand. It felt, this was back when there wasn't tons of independent brands. Bumble was probably one of the few names at that time that still felt independent. Kevin Murphy had started to have a little bit of a foothold in the market, but actually, this product Unite came and it blew me away. And essentially, they offered me a job, and
okay,
it was a bit of a hybrid role. I think I'd been used to dealing with the salon reps from L'Oreal and Redken and Weller in my time, and all of them were sort of guys in suits with a laptop, or even back then it was a flip chart, and they just were marking off what products you were going to buy, and they were telling you about new promotions. But they were salesmen, and there's nothing wrong with that, but they
yeah,
were out and out salespeople. And what idea we came up with Unite, and because I had a very close relationship with a guy called Tony White, who was the UK and Europe distributor of that, was that if we're going to go out to salons and we're going to somehow eat away at the pie of these massive corporation brands that have got all that heritage behind them, we're going to have to do things differently. So, like, masses of education, believable sales reps, and working really closely with salons and giving them a level of relationship that only the big guys get at your L'Oreal's, your premier salons that are used to having the MD of L'Oreal come down once a quarter and see how they are and take them out for dinner and all that stuff. Unless you're that tier salon at a L'Oreal or a P&G or Weller, you're not going to get that level of service. So that's what we could do differently. So from there, went off to Unite and did this hybrid sales education role. I was looking after, our territories were huge, but I was more or less looking after the whole of the UK from an education point of view. But from a sales point of view, I had like London, Essex, Hertfordshire, and I got to see how it worked from the other side. I got to see how salons were working in every corner of the UK, and then abroad. It took me all over Europe. I was educating, so Sweden, Holland, Spain, Mallorca. I was doing a lot of traveling, traveled the US. In fact, this afternoon, I've got one of my US colleagues from Unite coming over from Texas. Like, she's coming over to see our salon, and she's staying here for a couple of days. She's going to see Taylor Swift Someone's got to.
Yeah. One or
So
two
yeah,
people, I believe. Yeah. But yeah, it's brilliant. How did you find that transition then from sort of being, salon based, salon, doing your clients, doing a bit of work for the product companies, to then sort of, was that more of a full time role you were doing there then with
yeah,
certainly with
totally.
Unite? How did you find that transition?
Well, do you know what? At the time, I was in the process of buying a second property, and just to be perfectly honest, the money wasn't cutting it where I was, and I was doing a lot of outside work. I was trying to do shoot work to supplement my income. And actually, what Unite offered me was a full-time employment role, with a decent salary because I wasn't so sales based. So the education stuff was paying really well at the time, and I absolutely loved it. I mean, I think one, it made me up my game because I was now teaching and there was nowhere to hide. So you're going into a salon or being flown to other countries and to demonstrate work. As you know, you can't fluff your way through it.
Yeah.
Especially with a British market, I could go over to America and I could cut a straight line and they'd be whooping and cheering.
Yeah.
But you go into a room of hairdressers in the UK and immediately they want to see that you can do what you can do. Otherwise, they're going to rip you to shreds.
Yeah.
So actually, it was a real steep learning curve for me. Of I need to know that I can go in anywhere and not have anyone be able to pull anything off me and say, oh, he doesn't do that properly, or that's not very good, or. So it upped my skill level massively, and I had a great time. It was great fun. Essentially, it was four lads going around the UK and beyond, with this brand new product and sort of sticking it to the big boys.
Yeah. No, it's brilliant, and they're still going around today, aren't they? Unite, they're still doing well. They're still
They
sort of
are.
see bits that pop up here and there about them. Yeah, it was an interesting time, I think, there when that came. Because, like you say, there was a couple of sort of brands that were starting to poke into that sort of the old guard. You essentially L'Oreal, Procter Gamble,
Yeah.
Unilever, and then there was a few others that were owned. I forget the name. There's a Japanese company that owns a load as well. But there was essentially 4 or 5 companies that owned everything in one way,
Yeah.
shape, or form. And then there was this sort of, it was this moment where people were like, no. And I think it was because of exactly what you said there, is the way that you're treated, certainly as a small salon. I know from experience by a lot of these larger product companies, the company we deal with, I mean, they just didn't want to waste their time coming in to see us,
No.
and it was, I can understand why, from a salesperson's point of view, they're going to come in and they're going to spend 20 minutes talking to me, the dad, and whatever else, they're going to make a couple of £100, or they could be trying to get to the big salon down the road who's got 2 or 3 salons and, make a couple of £1,000.
Yeah.
It's a tricky stick, in regards to that. But then, like you say, it's once those sort of smaller companies were breaching the market a little bit, all of a sudden, there seemed to be a little bit more about, especially with Unite, because I remember at the time there was a huge amount of sort of publicity and a good marketing campaign behind it.
Yeah.
It was huge.
Yeah, and it put us in front of a lot of those smaller, like exactly what you're talking about there, Ben. Those smaller
Yeah,
salons that the big boys didn't give a damn about.
yeah,
Like, okay, cool, we'll swoop in, we'll look after you. I will travel 100 miles to come and see you, and travel 100 miles back home, and I might only pick up a £200 order. But actually, do you know what? It's going to build and grow something, and that's how I always thought it should be. Like, there's no point in forgetting about those smaller salons because you never know what's going to happen with smaller salons. And I myself have known people from Unite days that were small salons and now have salon groups of 6 and 7.
yeah.
And those big boys haven't got a slice of the market. But ultimately, it does become harder to stock an independent because the prices are higher.
Yeah.
You have to educate your clients. If the company themselves aren't doing the marketing and PR that Unite were doing back then you essentially, as a hairdresser and as a team, have to market it to your clients. It is much easier to sell brand names.
Oh, absolutely. It's people recognise it, don't they? Which
Yeah,
which also with the big companies is a problem, because it's the education side of the Weller that you see in the supermarket is not the Weller that you see in the salon shelf, and
exactly.
L'Oreal, Schwarzkopf, whoever else you want to put in there. It
Yeah.
is high, getting that and then getting the trade in. It's a double edged sword with that. You know, really, if you can educate your clients when using the smaller sort of salon-based brands, you know, it can be quite good for business as well, you know,
Yeah,
for yourself as a salon. So when you were doing that then, so were you still working with clients? Did you still keep the small clientele going, or did you sort of
yeah.
cut back completely?
No, I had a small clientele that I kept working with. I didn't do any color with Unite, or we didn't do any color.
Yeah.
And I've always, I wouldn't say I've loved color, but I know I can do things with it that I'm happy with, and I would never call myself a color expert or anything like that. But I had a strong clientele of clients that liked the way I colored their hair. So I kept my hand in what I'd call salon hairdressing a little bit, going to people's homes, doing that stuff. And then Redken, actually the first ever sales rep that I dealt with at Redken when I was in that salon all them years before, we were sitting, I was conducting a meeting for Unite. She was waiting to come in for Redken, and we met, we chatted, and within a week, I'd had a phone call from the GM, general manager at Redken at the time, asking if I wanted to come in for a chat with those guys. So essentially, they headhunted me. It was unusual for a L'Oreal brand in the sense that most L'Oreal employees have to have they are they've had a, what would you call it, a university education. They've got those sort of qualifications apart from the really old school ones. So they were sort of bucking the trend there a little bit. But I think what Redken realised as a smaller brand within the big L'Oreal brand itself was that companies like Unite were taking their pieces of the pie. You know, they were no longer the cool, edgy, independent brand that Redken once was, and how were they going to get it back? So actually, again, I went in there and they created a role for me, which was this, again, a hybrid role, a role that never existed in these corporate companies. And it was a role that allowed me to do education, but also do sales for them. And again, that took me to the States. We did some quite groundbreaking stuff at the time on social media. We were the first company that was getting all of, I felt like the sales guys needed to be contactable, and they needed to be believable, and they needed to have some authenticity. You know, they weren't, again, going to turn up there in a company car with an iPad taking orders. So all our sales guys, we got them having their own personal Instagram accounts linked to their brand. So whether it was Kerastase, Redken, L'Oreal, whatever. And we grew in that way. You know, we needed to appear. I think L'Oreal needed to appear more independent than they were. I mean, you're not pulling the wool over anyone's eyes that they're not still a massive multi-billion pound brand. But, you know, for those sales guys going into salons against a maybe frosty salon owner who's like, you know, I owe you $2,000, and, you know, your finance guys are calling us up. Well, you know what? I can't, if you pay your bills, I can't help you with that. But we can be much more relationship based than we once were.
Yeah, added a human face to it, no doubt. That's the thing, isn't it? Is, you know, you might well be dealing with Bill from L'Oreal, but he's still Bill from L'Oreal, but now you know him more as Bill, you know,
Yeah,
rather than the L'Oreal part. Yeah, it's something that I've seen a lot. I didn't realize you were a part of that, but it's something that you see everyone does it now. You know,
exactly.
there's everyone does that now. Is that you've got whatever brand you like. It's, oh, so and so at so and so, da da da, and it
Yeah,
is. It does help sort of break down that sort of, well, you know, you're L'Oreal who sit in the big offices at Hammersmith, you know, and yeah, what's that got to do with me? Now, you know, you've got the people coming in, you can associate with them a little bit more. And once again,
yeah,
it's a people business, isn't it, hairdressing? So
totally.
it's something that helps scoot that along. So when you were
I,
there,
I,
so carry on,
I was
Anthony.
going to say, I think the funny thing is that because L'Oreal is such a corporate company, like something so simple to me and you as hairdressers, that it is a people's business,
Yeah,
and you need to speak to people on that level. Just wasn't being identified. It was
yeah,
like, right, how are we going to get growth? How are we gonna beat last year's target? How are we going to squeeze that promotion out of that customer? Well, actually, you know, everyone's sort of wised up to the fact that big companies bring out a new product that is potentially useless every year, and they make a big song and dance about it, and then quietly it just disappears off their SKUs, like, and off the shelves.
yeah,
So it was something as simple as, right, we need to look like at least that the salespeople care about hair,
Yeah.
that they have a little interest in hair to make this whole thing work. And that was it really. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I suppose, like you were saying, though, is you sort of hiring yourself as a hairdresser. You know, they've gone and got hold of someone who's just finished up a business degree, a marketing degree, whatever they've just done. It's they're just working for £1 billion company.
Yeah.
That was what they wanted from universities, right? I'll go get a job. I'll go get a job working for a £1 billion company or whatever it might be. That could have been anyone.
Yeah.
It could have been a tractor company, could have been a hair product company, whatever it is. But like you're saying, is so when you're dealing with hairdressers and things, things have to be a little bit different. I always find they have to be. There has to be that personality behind it. There has to be, yeah, there has to be a little bit of hair about it because people, like you say, have certainly over the past couple of years and probably before then have wised up to a lot of what was going on and what still is going on to a point with product companies, and small, certainly with small business,
Yeah.
it's, we've got this wonderful, like you just said, this wonderful new product that's, this, that, the other. And then all of a sudden you can't get that product.
Yeah.
The more frustrating thing is when they have a good product or they purchase a product line and then they get rid of the product that's actually any good. Well,
Yes.
I've had that a couple of times. My session kit is diminishing, because I
Yeah.
can't get this stuff anymore. It was Kiehl's Silk Groom. If L'Oreal, I think L'Oreal
Yes.
bought them. Kiehl's
Yeah.
Silk Groom, bring it back
Off
because
that
that
went.
it went, it's gone, gone. There was a thing. I was going to every Kiel shop, every airport. Have you got it? No, no. I'm crying out loud.
I'll
You
tell
know,
you what's got something similar to that, mate, because I'm in exactly the same boat as you. Is that Colour Wow? They've
yeah,
got something called 1 minute transformation, and it
okay.
is it's on it's not
It's
quite the
close.
kills, but it's there.
Yeah, okay. I might give it a go then. We'll see. We'll see. I'll see if I can get some and I'll have a go. We'll see. But anyway, so what happened then after L'Oreal? So you went into Redken and you sort of transformed what they were doing a little bit there.
Yeah,
Was there a point when you decided then, right, it's time to get back to the salon, time to get back to clients?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd sort of manoeuvred myself into a position that I knew there was nowhere else I could go. Like within L'Oreal, they were never going to stick me in management positions because I didn't have the degree. I wasn't an intern. It was only really ever going to be sideways moves from then. And along came on a shoot that we were doing a guy called Johnny Long, who has a salon on the King's Road called Ego with his business partner, another guy called Ben Cook. And we were doing a shoot together and we got talking. He was bringing out his own product line, very, very good, beautiful men's grooming line that he had. And he was moving away from the salon work and needed someone to sort of help step in, mop up some of the slack, I guess, from the salon. And I loved that guy. I loved the way the salon worked. They were a great team. I had been, where I'd been around a lot of those central London top salons because I worked for Redken and L'Oreal and I was getting in front of a lot of those bigger names. I had offers from other places. And you know what? Very often it didn't feel right. I feel like me and you are cut from the same cloth, Ben. Like I don't take kindly to people thinking they're absolute superstars. I always remember someone said to me, one of my colleagues at another place, you sound and look more like a car mechanic than a hairdresser. And I just thought, well, I haven't got to look or sound a certain way at all. Like, my clients like what I do. And it wasn't about wearing a big pair of flared trousers and sort of walking in a very flamboyant way for me. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't need any of that rubbish or that fluff to get me clients. And there's a lot of that in London.
Yeah.
A hell of a lot of that. And Ego didn't have any of that. Everyone was down to earth. It felt like a very family environment and I loved it. So I went there as a creative director. I made some tweaks. Obviously, I'd gained loads of experience from working at L'Oreal from a business point of view. I'd seen a lot of people's businesses. I'd seen a lot of the inner runnings of the top salons in London's businesses. And I was like, right, do you know what? With a few little tweaks here and there, we can get this absolutely popping. And we did. First year, we hit the million mark, went over that. And we were absolutely flying. And then COVID hit.
Yeah.
And
it all goes down. I mean, that is going to, that's a million turnover, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Yeah. Profit.
Well over.
Yeah,
we hit
well
over a million.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's brilliant. I mean, how many staff were in the salon?
At the time, we had about 22, 23 staff.
Yeah, that's some going though, still, isn't it? You know, to be hitting that. I
Yeah.
mean, you know, once you're turning over 1 million as a hair salon, that you're doing exceptional. You know,
Yes.
as a single salon as well, wasn't it?
One
Was it?
salon,
Yeah, yeah,
15 chairs. Yeah, the maths was really good.
yeah. You're making good money per square foot there, then, aren't you? Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
That's for sure. That's fantastic. You know, that's another thing we need to, you know, sort of get out there a bit more as well. Is, you know, you can do this sort of stuff. You
You
know,
totally
these
can.
sort of numbers as hairdressing businesses. It's something that I don't think we do enough of, and I think we're overtraded as a bit as an industry, which doesn't help. But it is out there. You can do that from a single salon, and you know, with not wanting to be degraded. It's not a name salon. It's not a name that you
No.
see everywhere. It's a name you have to know about, but
Yes.
they're still doing it. They're still doing those
Yeah.
sort of numbers. You know,
Yeah.
it's
I
something.
mean, I liked the heritage. Like Ben worked a lot with Victoria Beckham. He was the guy who cut the pop. So when I
Yeah,
started hairdressing, it was like a baptism of fire because Ben had just cut Victoria Beckham's hair into a bob. I had just started. This salon was in North London. There was a lot of Greek women there, and all of a sudden, I'm trying to do graduated bobs on like the thickest,
yeah,
maddest hair. GHGs had just started to come into salons, which any younger hairdressers listen to this think they've been there from day dot. Like before that, you had to be a very good blow dryer.
yeah.
You
The
had to
round
know
brush
your way
did some
around the
work,
bend
didn't
and
it? The
brush.
round brush did some work. You know,
Yeah.
that was for
And,
sure.
so I knew that those guys had that heritage when I joined. And, it was great at the start. And then, COVID hit. I wasn't the biggest fan of that.
Yeah. No,
As
I don't
you
think I
probably
was either. But yeah, yeah,
no.
yeah. It wasn't great. You know what happened there. But yeah, it's something for another day. That. But yeah, it was not a it wasn't good for business. That's for sure. It
No.
wasn't good for
And we
anyone.
just had our daughter. So
Yeah.
me and my wife my daughter came along in the May after the March that COVID hit. So it was a little bit of a hairy time. And then, we went back to salon in the UK. We closed. We were the worst hit really, the hairdressers.
Yeah.
And we closed for a very long time. I remember opening back in the June, and it all felt very weird because a business that is fundamentally so built on customer interactions and closeness all of a sudden was very, very different. And it took a while to come back from that. I think one of the things we did as a management at that salon was try and make the salon feel as least impacted as possible. So it didn't feel like a scary place. It didn't feel like a lab. We were very we let people relax because we realized that in every other walk of life people weren't relaxing, and actually I think that held us in great stead. I think a lot of people actually enjoyed coming to our salon at the time because it did feel normal,
Yeah.
or as normal as it could have done at the time, which was good.
No, certainly. I mean,
um,
making the effort as a business to do that, you know, I mean, it must have helped hugely because it was everything was so sort of fear based and anxiety driven and sort of making people very, you know, very, very worried. In some cases,
yes.
you know, each individual can take it as they do, but is that thing, and then allowing it just feeds into other areas of life. So providing somewhere where people can relax, and essentially, that's what people come to hairdressers for, isn't it? You know, is
Yeah,
they come to relax and leave feeling good. You know, that's what they want. You know, and it's
totally.
that still trying to create that during that time. It's a very, very difficult task, but if you were able to do it, it was a fantastic thing for communities to do.
Yeah.
No, it was. So then, how did you find sort of coming out of that once it all started to settle down a little bit and life returned back to normal a little bit more? Did you find that it was still as busy? Did you find that it had taken a hit because of all the other issues that went on because of the
Um,
lockdowns and whatnot?
yeah, we certainly took a hit. I mean, it's the same as far as I'm aware, the whole UK over. Like, we were going around to people's houses doing hair. We were allowing our staff to do that because we knew that if we didn't do it, someone else would. So clients would potentially move over. Um, and it's very hard, it's not a tangible thing to measure really. But did we do the wrong thing? Did we do the right thing? Who knows? But I think it was a movement that was happening anyway. And certainly what I was aware of when I was in the US doing teaching, that a lot of hairdressers were moving away from wanting to be in a salon environment and getting booth rental, chair rental. You know, in the US, you've got these huge warehouses converted over to individual salons that, you know, people could be their own boss. And Instagram was allowing people to be their own boss and make a lot of money out of it, which is, you know, great. But I've always liked working with people. I've always liked being part of a team. But as a result, we lost probably 50% of our team.
Yeah.
Post COVID, people moved to other salons. People just went alone. People going door to door, that sort of stuff. So we certainly took a hit. But I must say, this part of London is about as affluent as you're going to get in the UK. And actually, as opposed to what I hear from a lot of my hairdresser friends in suburbia and in other parts of the country, we fared pretty well. Like, our clientele have got a decent amount of money behind them, and actually COVID was never going to hit them as badly as it did a lot of others. So as it went, we were actually pretty okay. We could have been hit a lot worse, but things had changed. You know, I suppose, so we've got 4 daughters, so that gave us time to spend a lot of time with our family, and think about things and reassess where me and my wife wanted to be. Now, you know, she's a hairdresser. She's been in this industry longer than me. She also worked for L'Oreal and Redken for a time. She worked for Paul Mitchell. She worked for numerous Lanza, like tons of brands. So she had a ton of experience in and around salons too. She'd owned 2 salons herself. And we had always thought, okay, then maybe at some point when we met and came together, and, you know, was there going to be something on the horizon for us? Was there going to be something that we could create for our kids? And I suppose we weren't even looking for it. It was just something that was always there. There's always like, we're going to have a plan B, because you never know when the next pandemic's going to happen, and you never know, you know, what's around the corner now. And my wife is very like intuitive, and we'd actually both come to the salon that we now own separately to do training with the team. And the guy who owned this salon was a beautiful guy, lovely man, very also a husband and wife. His wife's not a hairdresser, but she was a business partner. And we drove past one day because our car got rerouted on the way into work. And Anna Marie said, I absolutely loved that salon. Wasn't it lovely? Yeah, it was lovely. She was like, you know what, Ant, one day we'll get it. One day we'll have a salon like that. And I didn't think anything of it. She said, no, I'm manifesting it. We're going to get a salon like that. We drove past it. It was closed down. The guy had phoned us and basically said, look, I've opened another salon. I can't make this one work as a blow dry bar. If you guys are interested, I would love to sell it to you. And yeah, it's sort of all of a sudden, out of the blue, out of nowhere, it was like, right, okay, we've got a big decision to make. Are we going to go it alone? And I think it was a case of, if not now, when? And if not now, it might never happen again. We might not get this opportunity. And this feels like fate sort of thing, you know, and yeah.
No, I think it happens. You know, that sort of thing. It's like you say, is you're thinking about it, and like you say, your wife manifesting. You know, it is true to a point. You know, that sort of thing. You think about it enough, and you sort of push in the right direction of it happens. I mean, how quick was the turnaround then from you sort of thinking, oh, you know, that's you know, the wife saying that's a nice shop, I'd like a shop like that, to then you getting the phone call? Was that a long time in the thing, or was it sort of?
Yeah, it was. That probably took about 8 or 9 months.
Okay. So not too long then, really. You know, when by the time you've taken you sort
Well,
of do
yeah,
the
I suppose in the
paperwork
grand
and
scheme of
leases
things.
and everything else. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah. And then, yeah, it all sort of turned around very, very quickly. I've got a huge amount of respect for the guys I worked with. I knew that potentially it was close, or closer than they'd like.
yeah,
But we spoke to them, you know, I explained the situation. Those guys had done the same. They'd worked for Harry's in Chelsea and Fulham, and they decided to open up on the King's Road. So I think there was a common ground there. It wasn't, it wasn't like they'd never heard of anything like this before. And potentially employing a husband and wife, there was always that potential that we were going to go and do something like that. The landlord here, because the lease was changing, they wanted to improve the energy efficiency rating of the place. So they gave us some works that they were going to have to do. They overran by weeks. So actually, in the end, we had about a week and a half to turn it around into the salon that we wanted. Very luckily, my mum and dad retired. They got right stuck in, helped us with a load of decorating. Anna Marie, actually, for the first couple of days, she had taken our eldest daughter off to work experience in the countryside. So for the first couple of days, it was mad. Like, we were working so hard, but yeah, we turned it around and we opened on the 5th of March this year.
Yeah. So you've been open now, coming up, what, 3 months? Yeah. Coming up 3 months. Yeah. How have you found that transition? Because obviously, once you become a salon owner and a business owner, it's a very different hat to being a salon manager, or when
Yes.
it's another person's business, as to your own. How have you found that transition in the first sort of quarter that you've done it?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose everyone's got their job roles. What I mean by that is, me and my wife have got our job roles, and we've got our strengths and our weaknesses. I hold my hands up. My organisation skills are diabolical compared to hers, and our household wouldn't run the way it does if it wasn't for her. And I suppose there was no point in me suddenly pretending that I was going to become the world's most organised person and be able to run this show in any way, shape, or form differently to how I run home. So from that point of view, Anna Marie fundamentally deals a lot more with the finance side of stuff. She's run salons before, so she does that. I suppose my biggest thing is that thing of putting your head down on the pillow at night and knowing that it all rests on you two. So, we've got a couple of employees here who are sisters. We've got the rent to pay. We've got our kids at home. We've got the mortgage. We've got the food. We've got, all that sort of stuff. That's the mindset shift, is that, if we didn't bring enough clients with us, if we didn't encourage new clients in the business, that essentially it's all on your shoulders. So that's a massive shift. But then I suppose that could be perceived as a negative. Actually, I think both of us perceive that as a positive. It allows us to have ownership over everything. Not that we're control freaks, but through the 25 plus years worth of experience of going to thousands and thousands of different salons in our work, we cherry picked the good stuff that we wanted it to be like, and we saw things that weren't working in other salons, or just new ways of working. We understand that we have to be really respectful to our staff, and that's not put on. It's not we're pretending to be respectful, then as soon as a little bit of stress occurs, the cracks show, and we actually are nice people. We treat these guys like they're our daughters. They are an extension of our family. We are with them certainly more than we're actually with our daughters, sadly, at the moment. We have to adapt to a modern way of working. We do have to understand that it's not like when me and Anna Marie were juniors, that you would get down on your hands and knees and scrub the floor if you were told to. That, if that client was going to run 2 hours behind, that you were just going to stay until 9 o'clock at night, even though you only worked till 6, you weren't going to get paid for that, or you'd come in an hour early to clean the salon, before work. That stuff, and rightly so, just isn't the way that the world works anymore, and we've got to adapt to that. And there are some parts of it that were probably good. I think dedication to work is different nowadays. I don't feel like, in all the young people that I've trained, that anyone's ever been as dedicated as what I seem to remember. But that's not necessarily a bad thing, in the sense of, if there isn't that positive outlook of what they're going to be able to do with the wages that they're getting, then I totally get it. There isn't the hope. So I understand potentially a slight less lack of dedication to this career, this craft. I think that's the thing. I felt really impressed by the craft of being a hairdresser. I did go to seminars. I did go everywhere looking for education. I immersed myself in it. I don't think I don't think anyone's like that about anything anymore, which is sad.
Yeah. I think as well though, as you say, that goes back to what we say earlier. It's about when we were starting, the only online resource that I really knew of, there was some other little tidbits, was myhairdressers.com, which is a fantastic resource.
Yeah.
But that was it. So I think the thing is, it's a bit like anything now, is it's very difficult to get, there's very little hyper focus on anything because everything's so fragmented and in tiny little bite-sized chunks. It's very hard to get that sort of that sort of tunnel vision with anything, so to speak,
Yeah.
because there is so much of it. As you could say, oh, you could type into Google now, oh, how to do balayage, and you'll be there all day trying to find, something, looking at it, and there'll be so many different little bits and bobs. It's a very difficult thing. I can understand why, with sort of younger generations of how they're sort of coming into the industry and how they want to digest things and how they want to learn and do things. And I think what you said earlier there, we're at a very interesting point, because certainly the past couple of years have changed everything, in
Mm.
regards to the world and business. And I think we're at the moment we're trying to swing our way back towards the middle. I think sometimes before, because like my dad trained at Raymond's, Mr. Teasy Weezy.
Yeah.
He trained there, and they had that you had to clean the toilet with a toothbrush. And the
Yeah.
idea there was, it's because you got your eye for detail. Would that happen now? Not in a month of Sunday. Should you ever have had to do that? Probably not, in my opinion. But we need to swing back into the middle ground,
Yeah.
and I think we'll get there. We'll get there eventually, because I don't think it can quite carry on as it is, and I don't think it should ever go back to how it was. Is we need to learn from both ends of the stick, and I think
Totally.
we're working our way towards it now. We really are. I mean, so how many staff? Did you say you've got 4 staff there now? Is it?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right. We're looking to get a couple more. We're not a huge salon. We have 6 functioning salon chairs. Because of that, we've changed how we work a little bit. Our reception area. We have a garden, which is, I mean, we live out in the countryside ourselves, so we've got a nice big bit of greenery at the back of our house. But I think having the garden, and the weather's been diabolical in London at the moment for the past
Yeah.
few months, but when that has been open and working, it's been a lovely place to sit clients whilst their colour's developing. The area I'm sitting in now is another colour development area. So, we understand that, yes, whilst those 6 chairs upstairs are small and close together, there's a way of juggling it around so that we do have the ability to create more space. We've got 2 clinics downstairs that are offering wellness strips and PRP for hair loss, and they're 2 doctor clients of ours.
Okay.
These rooms were functioning as hair dressing rooms, but for me they were too dark. We didn't really like the vibe of them. We wanted to create this like dark members club sort of vibe going on. And actually they work much better as clinical rooms. So our clients can get a drip while their colour's developing. And also for clients who are experiencing hair loss, they can have PRP. So we're sort of trying to hit every aspect, but not get too greedy on the hairdressing side of things and make it feel too busy, make it feel like we're not giving our clients a service. The whole point is that, and even this morning, one of my clients this morning, it was her first visit here. She used to visit me in another place, and she said, I feel like I'm getting my hair done in the front room. It's really cool and relaxed. And we never wanted that part of it to change.
Yeah, that's a good thing. It's a very difficult thing to create as well. It takes a lot of thought, to create that sort of relaxing sort of vibe. You're going into a business still, but you're still getting the time to relax and to be yourself. I mean, it sounds like quite a large spot. I mean, how many floors are you over there?
We've got 2 floors.
Yep.
Like I said, we've got 2 floors, 6 chairs upstairs, 2 backwashes, and then downstairs we've got 3 rooms, a staff room, and a garden. I wouldn't say it's as big. Yeah, it's weird. When people get in here, it feels big, but actually, when we looked around it, we were like, "Oh, okay, it's actually quite small," and we liked that, but we weren't biting off more than we could chew.
Yeah.
For us, the rent is manageable. All those sort of things that we don't want to come unstuck with. I'd love in one day to have a 50 chair, Daniel Galvin-esque salon. I mean, you sort of feel like you made it, but actually at the moment for us, this feels exactly where we should be. And we don't want to run before we can walk. We don't want to get full of ourselves. You know, anything can happen. We want somewhere that we can sort of nurture to grow.
Absolutely. It's a very important thing. You know, it's sensible that you said that, because, you know, there is this sort of idea. I think the idea is dying off now because of how much rent rates, etc. are. But, you know, it's that don't run before you can walk. It's create something you can grow from. You know, nobody
Yeah.
grew, no tree ever grew from being a tree. It grew from a seed.
No.
You know, it's nothing just turns up the size that it is. Certainly nothing that lasts generally anyway.
No.
You know, that's for sure. With your staff there, because I know you were saying, you know, you're looking to get more staff. Are you looking to, is that employed staff you're looking for, self-employed? Are you open to
Um,
of ideas?
so we're going to get. We have no apprentices currently,
Yeah.
but I have a lovely guy that I've met along the journey in hairdressing, and he contacted me when he saw that we opened up, and he said, "Look, I would really love to become a hairdresser." So he's going to be coming on in the summer as an apprentice, doing his MVQ with us, and then probably self-employed, Ben, to be perfectly honest. Number of reasons. One, we want someone with a little bit more experience. And I feel most people with a little bit more experience, especially colorists, realize that they can make more money being self-employed. I think the trend, I mean, you know, I remember when I started at Unite, the trend was for everyone to become a session stylist.
Yeah.
And actually, there's slim pickings out there, and the money's not amazing. And it feels very good having your photos taken and your work being shown. But there's very few guys and girls in that industry, or that part of the industry, that are making, you know, the money that they need now to support themselves, and they are supplementing it with salon work.
Yeah. Certainly,
I think
that's a huge thing, you know. Now we'll carry on, but I'll get back to that in a minute. But that is something that's changed a lot.
I think, yeah, and I think it was a real fashion. It was a real trend, you know, driven by magazines, that this was the place to be. This was really cool. You know, you're only making it if you're doing session work. And actually, you know, being a good old fashioned salon hairdresser is sort of back where it's at. I mean, education now, if you sort of make hay while the sun shines, you hit a decent education platform, there's money to be made there. But again, it's very hard to keep on creating new content as an individual. So I feel the power is with the colorists right now. And you know, if you're charging £200-300 per color application, being employed and having complicated commission structures, and you know, if you make this, you'll get this. If you do make this, you make this little bit more, and you get this amount of holiday per year, but you can't have holiday then, and all this sort of stuff doesn't work for young people anymore. So we're finding that the applicants who haven't been right, we haven't taken them on, and we have had applicants who haven't been right for our business, haven't been right for the size of it. We're finding that it is self-employed all the way, really, at the moment.
Yeah, no, it's certainly a way that I think, like you say, is most people now with experience, that's the way they're looking to go. I think it is becoming a bit of a trend, like you say, as it was. There does tend to be a trend in the industry every couple of years. Like you say, it was session stylist. Everyone was a session stylist for 5 minutes. You know, they've done, you know, one show for a product company at Fashion Week, they were a session stylist.
Yeah.
And then everyone's an educator. Educator, I think, is now on the downslope. I think we're coming into business coaches now. I think everyone's a coach now.
You're right.
You know,
yes.
Everyone's starting to become a coach, which is fine. If you know, we had Raymond Everall on a few weeks ago, and Raymond Martins. Now he is a business coach, but this is a guy who's run very, very successful salon businesses, and I think I don't want to get it wrong, but I think he's certainly around 60, maybe a little bit older.
Yeah, no,
he's been there. Yeah, with Raymond. He's brilliant. You know, that sort of thing is fine. There are great business coaches. A lot of them, perhaps not quite so much. Well, I would say.
I see a lot of how to become a six-figure stylist for me at the moment. That is the one, becoming a six-figure stylist. And I'm sure there's a lot of tidbits that you can take out of it. But as you know, as a business owner, there's nothing worse than listening to someone who's doing a business class. Salon owners who's never owned a salon in their life, but have only managed it. Because I think, yes, there might be some things that are almost identical, but the one bit you cannot feel is that feeling of the responsibility being on your shoulders. And I think that is and again, it goes back to that salesperson versus hairdresser telling you about a hair product. That's the bit that there's the disconnect. If you haven't owned your own salons, and they haven't been successful salons, and it's very hard to preach to a room full of hairdressers or business owners, this is what you should be doing in your business.
Yeah. Oh, certainly. Like you say, that with the, you've managed a salon and whatnot else. At the end of the day, it's not your money in the till. It's that's the thing. It's not you. That's the thing. You know what? That does sound a brilliant idea, to have these backwashes that do everything under the sun. And then you think, oh, well, hang on, how much does it cost? Don't matter about that. The clients all love it. Well, hang on, they're 50 grand a piece. This is, it's a lot of money you've got to take. I forget the analogy, but my dad always used to say, I have to get him to tell me again, but it was about buying a kettle for your business. Kettle costs 10 quid. No, it don't cost 10 quid. How like you'd say you got to make the £10, then you've got to take your VAT, then you've got to pay your tax. Da, da, da. And by the end of it, it's about 30 quid. It's like all of a sudden it's not a 10 quid kettle, it's 30 quid out of your business. And it's like, for small things like that, it's understandable you can do it, but there's a lot of people who don't think along those lines.
Pension contributions.
Exactly. Employing people now, certainly in the UK, in America, it's still relatively easy to employ people. There's not a lot of red tape, and it's freedom, isn't it? You can pretty much crack on. But yeah, the UK now is becoming incredibly difficult. I mean, I have my business in Germany. And that was nightmarish. If you wanted to employ people, it was hell on earth. It really was. And that doesn't lead to a great atmosphere for business growth. Anything. It doesn't lead to anything good.
No.
In the end, we need to look after small business owners. I mean, I can understand why they do a lot of these rules and they bring a lot of this stuff in to stop people taking advantage of other people. But the trouble is they're caning the 99% for the 1% who can't behave themselves.
It stifles it.
Absolutely, it makes it so difficult to crack on. But thank you very much there, Anthony. I'm sure we're going to have you back on. I'm sure we'll get some nice pictures of the salon and whatnot up as well at some point in the group. So thank you very much for coming on, sir. We'll speak to you soon.
Thanks for having me, Ben.
No trouble. Bye bye.
Pleasure to speak to you.
Pleasure.